Good morning everyone, thanks for joining. Before we get into the agenda, I want to take 5 minutes to level set on something that affects every decision we're going to make today. In the first half of this year, the Mandiant M-Trends report put the global median dwell time, that's how long an attacker sits inside a network before anyone notices, at over a week. And when the breach is discovered by an external party rather than an internal team, that number jumps significantly higher. That gap doesn't exist because security teams lack data. Most organizations are drowning in it. Logs, alerts, threat feeds, and dashboards. The gap exists because very few organizations have built the process to turn that data into something leadership can actually act on in time. Today, I want to walk you through how we close that gap here, and it starts with understanding a distinction that sounds simple, but changes how you evaluate everything your security program does. The difference between data, information, and intelligence. If you're a CTI analyst watching this, that opening is a template. This is how you open a stakeholder briefing when you need the room's attention before you've earned it. And I want to break down exactly what I did there and what I'm going to do in the rest of this video, because the techniques matter just as much as the content you're sharing. Here's how the video is going to go down. I'm going to deliver 3 short segments, the way I'd actually deliver them on a call with the leadership team. After each one, I'll break that fourth wall and walk you through the communication choices I made and why they land with executives. Think of it as a briefing with a director's commentary on top. Let's jump back in. So, data, information, and intelligence. These aren't interchangeable terms. They represent 3 different levels of value your security team can deliver. Data is raw. A log entry, a file hash, a packet capture. It tells you something happened, but not what it means. Think of it like CCTV footage, with no timestamps and no labels. You have the recording, but you can't tell the story. Information is what you get when you process that data and give it structure. You parse the logs. You enrich the IP address. Now you can answer who connected, from where, and when. You're moving from something happened to here is what happened. Intelligence is a step most organizations have not built yet. This is where your analysts take that structured information, apply context about the adversary, their intent, their capability, and their past behavior, and produce something that answers the question you actually need answered. What does this mean for us? And what should we do about it? The practical difference looks like this. At the data level, you receive a list of suspicious IP addresses. At the intelligence level, you receive a briefing that says a financially motivated group has been targeting firms in our sector using this specific technique. Here's the likelihood they reach us, and here are 3 controls that would significantly reduce that risk. Okay, let's unpack that. Notice what I didn't do. I didn't mention the data, information, knowledge, wisdom pyramid by name. I didn't reference information science. I didn't use a single framework label. The room doesn't need to know the model exists. They need to understand the distinction it describes. I also used a comparison they can hold in their head without writing anything down. CCTV footage with no labels. That is the anchor. 2 weeks from now, when someone in that room is reviewing a security budget, they'll remember the CCTV thing, and that is the point. The other move, I ended with a concrete before and after. A list of IPs versus a briefing with a recommendation. Executives think in deliverables. Show them the output changes, not the process changes. Let's go back in. This next section is the one that usually gets the biggest reaction in the room. There's a concept I want to share that will change how you evaluate what your security team reports to you. Your team blocks threats every day. Malicious IP addresses, suspicious file signatures, known bad domains. And that's necessary work. BAU stuff. But here's what you should know. An attacker can change any of those indicators in minutes. Rotating an IP address costs them almost nothing. Now, at the other end of the scale are what we call an attacker's behaviors. How they move through a network, how they establish a foothold, and how they extract data. These are patterns that take months or years to develop. Forcing an attacker to change their core behaviors is enormously costly to them. It often means rebuilding their entire operation. So here's the question worth asking in your next security review. Is your team reporting that they blocked 10,000 malicious IPs this week? Or are they reporting that they've identified how a specific threat actor operates and built defenses that catch them regardless of which IP address they might use tomorrow? Both are valid, but they represent very different levels of maturity and very different levels of protection. That section is doing something specific. And I never said the pyramid of pain. I never said your tactics, techniques and procedures. Not once. Because the moment you drop an acronym in a leadership meeting, half the room stops listening and starts wondering if they should know what that means. And you've lost them. And you've made them feel like they're in your meeting instead of the other way around. Instead, I framed it as a question they can take ownership of. Is your team reporting this or that? Now it's their question to ask, not your framework to explain. That's the shift. You're giving them a tool to evaluate their own program. And that's far more powerful than teaching them a model they'll forget by Friday. One more section. This is the one that connects everything to money. Let me bring this to the metric that matters most at this table. Dwell time. How long does an attacker sit inside your environment before your team detects them? The industry median is still measured in days. Organizations with a mature intelligence capability, where data is being systematically refined into actionable intelligence, well, they can measure it in hours. Every day an attacker goes undetected is a day they're escalating access, mapping your sensitive assets, and potentially exfiltrating data. The financial difference between detecting a breach on day 2 versus day 20 is not incremental. It is the difference between a contained incident and a regulatory event. The way I'd frame it is this. Collecting data is a cost. Turning it into intelligence is where the return on your security investment actually lives. Your intelligence function is not a team that produces reports. It is the function that tells you what threats are real, why they matter to this organization specifically, and what to do about them before the incident occurs. final technique to call out, that whole section use language the room already thinks in. Dwell time, breach cost, regulatory exposure, and return on investment. I didn't teach them a new concept. I translated an existing one into their vocabulary. This is the thing I see CTI analysts get wrong most often in these stakeholder meetings. They present the work. What you should be presenting is the outcome of the work, described in terms the audience already uses to make decisions. If your CISO measures risk in terms of regulatory exposure, talk about regulatory exposure. If your CFO measures value in terms of cost avoidance, talk about cost avoidance. Same intelligence, different frame, completely different impact on the room. And that's the structure. Hook them with a number that they can't ignore. Give them 3 concepts using 0 technical jargon. Translate everything into the language they already use to make decisions, and close with questions that give them something to do, not something to remember. Next time, we'll break down more CTI to boardroom skills so that you can break down those communication barriers and make CTI actionable to your stakeholders. Make sure you're subscribed for that one. Now, before I go, I want to hear from you. What's the hardest part of briefing your leadership team? Is it getting the meeting in the first place? Is it translating the technical detail? Or is it handling questions you don't have the answer to? Drop it in the comments. I'm going to try and build a future video around the most common challenges. So until then, I'll see you in the next one.